$80,000. Now, this is a really interesting price point, and surprisingly one I haven't covered on this channel. Because on the one hand, you've got the $50,000 boats, which are, like the entry-level boats. They're a lot older. A lot of the time, they're kind of projects. And then you've got the ones that are pretty much ready to go, although older or smaller, at $100,000. And when sellers go to sell boats, they're selling them between $105,000 and $120,000, thinking in their mind, I'd like that nice round $100,000 number. If I have that, I'm happy. But you have $80,000. You're kind of right in between these two worlds. And it's a hard thing to do to set up a short list on boats, which many people do reactionary. You just go onto the website and see what's for sale right now. I'm going to give you a list of boats that may or may not be for sale, but should be on your short list. And stay tuned to the end, because I'm going to give you 5 boats that could be possible shortlist boats, but they all have problems. And I'm going to tell you exactly what they are to save you the time and the energy of going to see them. All right, ready? Let's go. Okay, before we get into the boats, I want to show you guys exactly how I look at boats to kind of train you on how you can do this for yourself. So every single day I get comments that say, hey, James, what do you think about this boat? And sometimes it's like this really obscure brand that I've never heard of before. So the first thing I do, if somebody gives me a boat, we're going to use the Corbin 39 because that's our first boat, just as an example, is I want to get a profile view of the boat. And I want to see what it looks like. Not only this view, but I want to see the entire boat out of the water, either a drawing or an actual picture in profile. So what am I looking for here? When I'm looking at a drawing of a boat, I'm looking at where the water line is, how much boat is underwater. This part is called the forefoot. I want to make sure that there's a significant forefoot. That way you can punch through waves and it's a little more comfortable going upwind. I want to see how the keel is attached. I want to see how the hydrodynamics are. I want to see if it's got a skeg. You can kind of tell by the drawing whether or not a keel has bolts or is encapsulated. That is, they pour the lead in and this is all one big piece of fiberglass, or they bolt it on the bottom. And then you can get the layout of kind of what the top side of the boat looks like, what the cockpit looks like, if people are going to be able to lay down in the cockpit before you go into the actual photos of the boat. So our boat, number one, is this boat, this Corbin 39. I think that the Corbin 39 is a great boat. It should be on your short list. If you like double enders and you don't mind, not having that sugar scoop in the back, these are well-built, very well-founded boats. You can read about these boats from Mr. Corbin himself. I'll put a link in the description to his story from his own mouth, which is kind of a cool thing. He teamed up with the designer for Jeanneau, and they made a round-the-world cruising boat. That's what he was going for, and he did a very good job. It's very similar to the Valiant in that it's a double-ended boat with an encapsulated keel and a skeg-hung rudder, and a little bit different waterline, a little bit different hull shape, but similar boats. These boats were built in Canada, and it's for people who didn't want to come back to Canada. They were sick of the cold, and they wanted to go where it was warm in the tropics. Word of warning with these ones, some of them are owner finished, so look very closely. But if you find a good one, this is a tank with sails. When I'm done looking at the profile of the boat, I go down and I look at the numbers. If you don't know what these numbers mean, I've got a good video. You can go up here. I explain with my buddy Plucky how to view all these numbers, what they mean. We go over the math. I'm going to make another video on that, just about that. It's a little more concise, so you don't have to watch an hour-long video to get all that information. But suffice to say, these numbers are important, and basically the ballast to displacement and the displacement to length are the two most important numbers when you're looking at a boat from the comfort of your own living room. This number says what percentage of this boat is lead, basically. And 40% is a lot. That's a very, very good offshore boat. And just the fact that the keel is spread out and it's got a real thick hull, and if you do take an impact or hit something, it's going to spread that out over the entire hull. I really like the way that that's designed for a cruising boat, because you're going to screw up and you're going to hit the bottom. And then when you have a displacement to length over 300, it's usually a little bit more comfortable. It handles the swell a little bit better. It handles the waves a little bit better. And it's just the motion comfort is better out to sea. Okay, boat number 2 is the Shannon 38. This is a true blue water cruiser with a cult-like following. And when I'm looking at the drawing from the side, the profile view, I'm seeing a robust boat here. It's not going to corner well. It's not going to back up very well. It doesn't have the brewer bite. That's that little hole here that you see in some boats. You saw in the Corbin 39. Here, this is called a brewer bite. And basically, this thing's going to be a tank. You can fall asleep and run this right up on the rocks, and it'll probably take it and get off the rocks, and you'll be fine. That's why you buy a boat like this. Because of the shape of the keel underneath the boat, it'll handle anything you throw at it. This one's got a ballast to displacement of 35, so 35% of the weight of the boat is in the lead, and a displacement to length of 281. So not quite as high as that Corbin 39, but still very, very good. And anything over 200 is, in my opinion, a blue water boat. This boat was made famous by Beth Leonard. She wrote the Voyager's Handbook in 1998. And she went around the world on this thing. And it just this boat kind of has a cult following because of that. So you can get these boats really, really well founded, or they can be older and they can be huge projects. I've personally saw the nicest one I've ever seen sell in Annapolis this last year. So you can find these boats in really good condition. This needs to be very well surveyed, and you need to get a list of when the last refit was done, because anytime you're looking at a boat that's 40 plus years old, every single system on that boat, sometime in its life, will have needed to be replaced. So you want to see when the last time the fridge was replaced, and the plumbing, and the head was rebuilt on the engine, and the coolant water lines, the toilets, all the hoses, all the pumps. You want to make sure that all that stuff has been replaced before you go down and spend your hard-earned money on a survey or flying to the boat. Okay, boat number 3 is the Hallberg-Rassy 41. I've included this boat because I want to include a Hallberg-Rassy onto this list. I really like their boats, especially in this era. And this is probably one of the cheaper ones you can get into for realistically $80,000. If you can save your pennies and get a little newer version, I've got a buddy with a 39. That's a perfect couple boat. It is really, really nice. They go for about $160 though. So this one you can literally get into right now for $82,000. I don't want to talk about every boat specific. This is more of a generalization. But when you are looking at boats, try to look at like where they are, who owned the boat before, and if it's set up to cruise. Like somebody put a very nice LaFrance windlass on the front of this boat. And that's a nice windlass. That's like a $5,000 windlass. And it's got a nice dinghy, and it's got some davits, and the motor works, and the cockpit looks like you can lay down and stay fairly shaded and out of the water. Looks like somebody cruises on this boat, which is exactly the type of person you want to buy a boat from, especially if it's an older boat like this. Looking at this boat from the side, see, this drawing doesn't have the underside of the boat. So we actually need to go and look for a better drawing of the Hallberg-Rassy 41 right here. So we've got a bite out of the back. We've got a modified full keel. We've got a skeg hung rudder. This underwater profile, here's the water line, looks like a good boat for offshore work to me. And if we go down to the numbers, we've got ballast to displacement of 38 and displacement of length of 244. So checks all the boxes. This would be on the short list. Although, big asterisk, you got to find one that's well founded. This might be one. Okay, next boat on our list is the Najad 390. This is a 39-foot Najad. It is very similar to the Hallberg-Rassy, not the same yard. The Najad, the Malo, and the Hallberg-Rassy are all built in Sweden. And the finishing and the joinery, you just know you're on a Swedish boat when you go into it. It's a beautiful, beautiful boat. I very much like Najads. I've reviewed many of them on the channel. And if you're lucky enough to sail on one, you'll know why. When I go to the sailboat data and I look at the drawing, I see another boat, very similar bottom profile to that Hallberg-Rassy with the modified fin keel, the bight in the back, and a skeg hung rudder. This is a nice boat. It's got a lot of forefoot to it. It looks like it can take a beating. A lot of these boats came with deck step masts, so if that's a deal breaker for you, just be aware of what you're getting. Great offshore boat option for your short list. All right, next boat is a boat I've covered many times on the channel. It's one of my favorites. It's called a Valiant 40, not to be confused with its big brother, the Valiant 42, which sells for about 3 times the price. The Valiant 40 is one of the boats that you can actually get into for $80,000. So this is a Bob Perry boat. It's coined as the first performance cruiser. They sail very well. They're very sea kindly. Very nice offshore boats. They have a lot of headroom in them. When you go in them, they're way big for a 40-footer. And the cool part about this is they carry that headroom throughout. So no matter where you're at in the boat, you're not having to bend over and duck under things, even for a 40-footer. This one's obviously been updated with a nice LaFrance windlass. I think that's the same one we saw in the other boat, actually. And another cool thing about these boats is they have very minimal wood on the outside, just this cap rail and this handhold. So it makes the maintenance easy. They are double enders, and Bob Perry's have quoted as, saying people were requesting this, and that's why I drew it like this. But even though they are a double ender, you can still lay down in the cockpit and sleep in the cockpit, which is super key for being offshore. So when you look for an offshore boat, you have to be able to lay down in the cockpit, because this is where your sick people will go. This is where you're going to hang out when you're out offshore. When you're actually making miles, you're going to be outside. It's hot inside. And if you're going upwind and there's a lot of water coming over the boat, everything's going to be shut up. It's going to be hot. You're going to be outside chilling. You want to be able to take a nap out there. The cool part about this boat as well is, well, 2 things. One, the company is still in business and still doing aftermarket. They're not making boats anymore, but they're still doing aftermarket for the Valiants. And 2, these came with a lifetime hull warranty. So if you had the gall to get this thing surveyed every single year of its life, then they will honor a lifetime hull warranty free of defects. So that's pretty cool. Not a lot of these boats have gone through the trouble of being surveyed every year, but just the fact that the company would offer that says a lot about it. Horrible pictures on this boat, way blown out. Oh my gosh. Poor boat. Just completely misrepresented. But very good joinery. You can see it in this picture. Very good joinery, very good wood choices in here. Strong, American-built, Texas-built sailboats. One of my favorite boats. And when you look at the profile of the boat, you can see why. Big fat skeg protecting the rudder, modified fin keel, beautiful. Beautiful, lots and lots of forefoot. Look at all that forefoot to punch through anything. Just a nice, well-rounded boat. If you have a little extra money, the 42-foot version has a bit taller mast, and it has a little bowsprit out the front, and it has more sail area, so it sails a little better. I think they changed the bottom of it too. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember. Okay, next up is the C&C Landfall 40. This is often overlooked and often underpriced. C&Cs are pretty famous for building a lot of race boats. This is the cruising version of their boats. And in some of these boats, they came with a Pullman berth, which I really love. Same as the Valiant 40. The Valiant 40s all have a Pullman in the back, which is just a nice, good bed for that size boat. You can have 2 people. It's a square bed. It's not shaped funny. You're not hitting your head when you get up. You got full headroom in a Pullman. It's just really nice to have that like dedicated room. One bad thing is you can't get out of the bed without crawling over the other person. So that might be a deal breaker for some people, maybe not. But these are a good boat to look at and keep on your short list, and just keep in mind, I'm just trying to kind of open you guys up to what's available. When I look at the bottom profile on this boat, it's very similar to the Valiant. It's only got a half a skeg, so it's not really skeg protected, the rudder on this thing, which no boat's going to check every single box. That's just a box where you're either willing to let it go or it's a non-negotiable and this boat's out. Okay, next up we have the Jeanneau Sun Odyssey 40 DS. I really like the DS series of Jeanneau. These are great cruising boats for somebody that wants to cruise around the Caribbean. Maybe they want to buy it in the Med and they want to, take the boat down and cross the Atlantic from east to west. And that's kind of a downwind run. That's an easy run for this boat. And then get into the Caribbean and be good to go. This boat would not fare very well the other direction if you bought it in the States and wanted to take it to the Med. You can see from the small amount of forefoot, the almost plumb bow, the keel doesn't have any kind of stub or anything attached to it. So if you ground this boat, it's going to be a nightmare to fix it. It's also a short keel, this version of it anyway. So I'm not a big fan of short keels for cruising boats because you're talking cruising offshore miles. You need a longer keel. It's more comfortable. It's easy. It's easier to point. It'll make the boat point better. Also, a deal breaker for me for this boat is the horrendously exposed rudder. I prefer having a skeg on the rudder for my cruising boats. If I'm going to go far and if I'm going to put miles in, I want that thing protected. I've hit things offshore many times, and I don't want to worry about snapping that rudder off and just being, that's death to a sailboat. And a lot of the time, it doesn't just snap off clean. It'll break the rudder tube inside, and that's my problem with this boat. Now, why is it on my good list? Because they're good boats. They're great boats for cruisers that aren't looking to go around the damn world, which is many, many people. So that's why I'm including it here. Even though it doesn't have a skeg and even though it doesn't have a keel stub, it's still right on the edge of my bluewater boat numbers. It's hitting 191 for displacement to length, so it is pretty light, but the ballast to displacement's at 33, and this boat would be okay offshore. You can see that the comfort ratio is a lot lower than we're talking about with any other boats that we've seen so far, and that's why I say it's going to be okay for a downwind run. It's not going to be okay if you're pounding upwind or if you're going out in 40 plus degrees of latitude and getting hit by these big storms, and you don't want this boat for that. But as far as like accessibility, it's got a swim platform. It's these boats, all the DS series of the Jeanneaus are actually really good boats. The people that I know that have them really love them. So that's why I included it here. All right, last boat we have, rounding off our list of $80,000 shortlisted boats, is the very famous Tayana 42. These boats were built in Taiwan. They are everywhere that I go, I see one of these things. I mean, I have friends in French Polynesia, I have friends in South Africa, I have friends in the Med, I have friends in the Caribbean, all on some version of this boat. Here's the owner's manual for this boat. We're just going to zoom in and see the bottom profile. You can see this bottom profile. They have a big fat skeg on the back and a big old fat keel. So you can beat these to death. And they just keep going. You can see how much forefoot is on here. It's got a clipper bow. That's the cant in the bow here. And it's just, this hull shape works really well in all conditions. It'll heave to well. It'll handle, it's a cutter, so you can handle a lot of wind with this thing. It's balanced really well. The center of effort and the center of lateral resistance here on the bottom are balanced really well on this boat. They just drew a really nice boat, and that's why it's so famous offshore. A lot of people have these boats. They come in all kinds of different fit outs. I've seen some that have super intricate carvings everywhere, and it's like a deluxe version, I guess. And I've also seen some that are super bare bones. So every fit out is different. And like I said before, they're older boats. So you're going to have to make sure that the maintenance has been checked off or budget that into your buying price. You know, I need to do this and this and this. The rigging will need to be redone. All these boats are coming up on 40 years. So you're going to have done all of the standing rigging and the running rigging. And, you know, every single system on the boat needs to be updated. So if it hasn't been done already, you're going to be the one to do it. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so now I'm just going to go over 5 boats and I'm going to let you guys know. It's kind of just a warning, okay? It's not saying that these boats are horrible. I'm not trying to dog on anything. I'm just giving you a warning. These boats look like a good fit for you at this $80,000 mark, but there's a couple of things to keep in mind. The first one we're going to look at is the Caliber 40 LRC. I'm not pointing out this boat specifically. I'm just saying this entire range of boats, the caliber 40 LRC, has been quoted by Bob Perry as having the keel too far aft. And that shifts the center of lateral resistance aft. And now you've got a boat that is very difficult to balance in a seaway. So these are good boats for coastal cruising, but in my opinion and Bob Perry's opinion, these are not good boats for offshore. They don't handle the sea well because they don't balance well. You'll constantly be fighting that. They make a bigger version of this, and that didn't happen on the bigger version because it's a different designer. So I think it was a 45 or a 47 LRC, and that one doesn't have this problem. So just read up about these boats if you're interested in buying a caliber 40 LRC, okay? The second one is the Morgan Out Island 41. I used to own one of these, and this boat is built for the charter trade in the Bahamas. So some of the late models, when they were purchased by Catalina and they were kind of redone and the keel was reshaped, and some of the later versions sail a lot better. So there are stories of these boats being sailed around the world, but I would imagine they're probably the later versions. The earlier versions with the full keel and the shallow draft, it's kind of like cutting yourself off at the knees. It doesn't really do anything well. It doesn't go into the marinas well. All it does is track well and handle grounding well. So if you were going to make, a charter fleet of boats, you'd want them to be inch-thick fiberglass and indestructible when people screwed up and grounded them in the Bahamas where it's really shallow. And this is your boat. So this is a purpose-built boat and its purpose wasn't sailing around the world. Number 3 is the Hunter 45. I am not a big fan of Hunters. Hunters, I inevitably get questions about Hunters every single week from people saying, hey, I can get so much boat. This one has an aft cockpit and you can get a 48-foot boat and it's costs nothing. And there's a reason. It's because they're just built shitty. I don't like Hunters. The story that I always tell people is I saw a Hunter that had been sailed from Seattle to Hawaii to Tahiti, and it torsionally twisted. Like the front end went this way and the back end went this way, and it had 2 teak rails running up it, and both those teak rails were split in half, and there was a good 3-inch difference between those teak. And it's just not a boat to go offshore in. I'm sorry. I know you guys probably love Hunters. I mean, you got a ton of room in this thing. Look at this thing. The cockpit's huge. And all this for a very little price, but you get what you pay for, people. And this is not an offshore boat. I'm sorry. Hands down, this is a dead no-go for me. Second to last warning boat is the Formosa 41. A lot of people, when they are new to sailing, they love this boat because it's a freaking pirate boat. I mean, look at these lines. They're beautiful. These boats look so cool. And it's the Captain Ron boat. In that one, I think they used a 61. It looks strong and it's built strong and it's a cool boat. And I've seen people put a lot of money into these and make these super nice. And just the seating area in the back is just super cool. And you got a wood steering wheel and like everything about this boat screams old world charm. Problem is they're fat, slow. The bottom profile's not that great. They don't sail well and they're uncomfortable. And it's just all of that added up. It will wind you down as you get into your cruising life. I've only seen one of these boats go far, and it was totally messed up when it came into port. So just be very wary about this boat. I understand if you have one, why you bought it. It's got amazing lines. It's a cool boat. I can get why. So there's nothing wrong with owning one. It's just if you're going to go around the world on a offshore vacation, you wouldn't want to sail this boat from the Chesapeake to Gibraltar. That's all I'm saying. Okay, and the last boat on our list is this Wauquiez Pretorien. And this is a 35. They're touting it as a 35 right here. 10.8 meter is 35 feet. Some of these boats, this is the warning, some of these boats are sold as 40s because if you measure them LOA from the tip of the bow roller to the very stern, it's actually 40 feet. But really, it's only a 35-foot boat. So my point with this boat is it's a great boat. It checks off all the boxes. It's just small. So don't get tricked into thinking you're buying a 40-foot boat, and you're actually, when you get there, it's only a 35-foot boat. So make sure that all the waterline lengths and everything match up before you spend your hard-earned money going to see this boat and then be disappointed when you get in there and it's tiny inside. Other than that, these are great boats. I mean, this is a great offshore boat. Wauquiez made a lot of different boats. So just because this one's good doesn't mean that a newer one or a different model is a good boat for offshore as well. If you'd like more information on what makes a good offshore boat, go buy my book. It's called Be the Captain. You can look it up online. Go Google Be the Captain. The whole chapter 2 has 11 subchapters on just that. What is motion comfort? All that stuff. That'll teach you. Buying the wrong boat the first time and dumping a bunch of money into it just to realize later that you can't balance the boat offshore is just such a dream killer. It's such a disheartening thing. And I do not want to see you guys do that. That's why I'm suggesting these boats to you. They're good boats. I trust them. I've been on them, a lot of them. And you can just see by looking at it, it's going to be a boat that can take a licking and keep on ticking, right? All right. Hope you liked it. See you next week. Much love. Oh, shoot. I forgot to say, I am doing something super cool. I mentioned this weeks ago, but I'm actually flying to Mallorca tomorrow to commission a brand new Bluewater 56 with the owner of Bluewater and the owner of the boat. So we're taking it off the barge. We're going to put the mast on it, rig it up, get everything sea trialed, and then we're going for a sail, and then we're going to the Cairns Boat Show with the boat. So big announcement. For the next few weeks, I'm going to be covering that. And it's going to be super cool. You can see, what some of the process is to commission a brand new $2 million boat. So that's fun, huh? If you're interested in seeing that series, please subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications. And a notification will come to your inbox right when I put out videos. Much love. See you next week.